Before the housemaid had lit their fire the next day, or the sun gained any power over a cold, gloomy morning in January, Marianne, only half-dressed, was kneeling against one of the window seats for the sake of all the little light she could command from it, and writing as fast as the continual flow of tears would permit her. In this situation, Eleanor, roused from sleep by her agitation and sobs, first perceived her. Poor old Marianne Dashwood. I kind of, in this scene here, picturing her much like this, half-dressed in her underthings, scribbling furiously to Willoughby as the tears pour down her cheeks. And if you were watching my video last week, you would have seen me make this chemise and fichu that my character here is wearing. But there is another important piece of the underclothing that I do need to make in order to help that silhouette of my Regency and Elliot dress look correct. Because at this time of the late 1700s, early 1800s, there was a real change in the silhouette of the fashions of the time. And specifically with the high-waisted dress, you got the girls sitting a lot higher, almost like you're presenting them on a platter in your low neckline dress. So if I am going to make a proper Regency dress for my Miss Anne Elliot, I am going to have to think about my brassiere. Now, of course, they didn't have bras like we have these days. What they would wear is something called stays. Now, stays are like the precursor to a corset, as most people think of it. Stays, especially in the Regency, were less about shaping the waist and more about lifting the bust to, well, greater heights than most of the other times. Now, I had to get on then and sort of review, well, what do these look like? What am I going to try and do for my Regency style stays? I came across this image from the Oregon Regency Society. I'm hoping you can see it here. This talks about some of the particular types of stays that you would see around the Regency period. I'll start from right to left. Here you see the long stays, which are kind of the precursor to the corset. They are probably a little bit later in the Regency period, but they give really good support and shaping. The transitional stays are closer to a waist length as opposed to almost hip length on the longer corset, also giving excellent shaping. And both of these had a very solid busk at the front, usually made out of a piece of wood. And that helps to keep that support very straight and firm, keeps it pressed against your breastbone to help sort of separate the girls while it's lifted. The other one that I was really intrigued in were the short stays. And as I was researching it, I found a few different forms of short stays, even some that were almost like a wraparound version. And to my eyes, they looked like a lot more of a modern kind of undergarment than some of these that are looking more corset-like. So in choosing what I'm doing for this project, I had a number of factors. I am not the tiniest in my upper half, so I've got a fair bit to lift. So probably a longer corset would be better. However, with my recent surgery, I don't like having a lot of things rubbing and pushing against my surgery scar, and that made me decide to try the short stays. So if I am doing short stays, I'm going to need some kind of pattern. I found a few great websites of people who have been working on making their own stays for Regency costuming. So the one that I would like to show you is this one from a lovely site, most aptly named Clusterfrock. And she has put up an excellent site on how to draft Regency short stays. She's sort of gone through and thought about how they're made and suggested how to take your measurements and step by step draft up something like the Regency short stays. And it looks fairly simple to do. So I'm thinking I'm going to try to follow her pattern to make up these stays. Now, I need to think about fabric, of course. In her site, she's suggesting cotton sateen with drill and muslin. But again, I'm making this from only things in my stash. So probably what I'm going to end up using is just this, because this is probably what I have that's most like any of those things. This is just a simple white bleached calico. It's possibly not as heavy as I would like, but it really doesn't have much give at all. So a couple layers of this, I'm hoping, will be enough to give the support that I need under my Regency dress. So as I go through, I will see what I need to do. I'm going to have to think about boning. I'm probably going to have to lace it together somehow. So there'll be a few things that I have to work through while I put this project together. So join me as I try to make my Regency short stays. So here we go. I've got my measurements taken. I've got my instructions to make this on my iPad, paper, rulers. What more does a person need except a lot of luck to see if this actually works out properly? I'm not going to video step by step through all of this. It really is quite straightforward on this website. Links below if you're interested to give it a go like I did. So let's see how it goes. Look, by and large, it went really well. It's quite simple to draft this one up. The mathematics associated with it is not very complex at all, not like doing a circle skirt. And there is something really satisfying about drafting your own pattern. I would say if you're in the market for Regency short stays, give it a go. It's worth it. And the pattern is done. As you can see, I didn't bother cutting the back piece into two because I thought, why bother? It's just more sewing. So anyway, the first bit I did was to sew the gussets in. I started at the point at the bottom, sewed my way up, as you can see there. Opened that one out, then folded the next side over, got it into position, and then sewed from the point up again. The seam on the main body piece is pretty narrow while doing that. I pin stitched all of them down to make them sit nicely, and I was hoping that that would provide a bit more structure. And really it's just then sewing fronts to backs and then sewing the front and the lining together as well. I could bind the edges, but I decided not to bother. So I'm just making a seam and then turning inside out, and that will enable me to enclose boning that I'm going to be putting in it. And what boning am I going to be putting in it? Well, it's this zip tie. I used zip ties for another corset that I tried to make a while back. Is it authentic? Absolutely not. Will it work? Well, I hope so. It worked well in that other corset. The other thing that's probably not really authentic is this air erase pen that I'm using. It's not something I've ever really used before, but somehow I needed to mark the channel that I'm going to have to sew with a pin stitch. And, well, I wasn't sure whether I was going to be able to remove chalk, so this seemed like it might be a useful thing to do, and it did indeed seem to disappear all by itself after I'd finished sewing. I really wasn't sure how to bone this, so I just found a picture or two that I'd seen online, and it suggested that maybe 2 pieces going from up near the armhole there down to in line with that first gusset. So hopefully that works. Right, I stitched this on with a prick stitch, but because I'm not binding the bottom, I sort of judged where the fold over was going to be and then started the stitch after that. So once I've put the boning in, I can then turn it over and finish off the bottom, if that makes any sense whatsoever. Is this the normal way to do things? I don't know, but it made sense to me, so that's what I did at the time. Is the prick stitch the right thing to do? I don't know about that either, but it seemed to work for me. It's holding the boning in on the centre front that I've already done. So here's hoping that will be good enough. So it's another cool morning. It is my last day of work before holidays, and I am hoping that I can get these stays into some sort of form of completion. So let me show you where I'm at. Oh, here's my train. So here's what I've got so far. I have all of the eyelets done. As you can see, they progressively get better as I was practicing getting used to it. Do I want to do any more eyelets? Absolutely not. Do I have to? I just realised, yes I do, because this will be closed with a couple of eyelets as well. So I believe they have another 8 to go. And aren't I excited? I'm adding a bit of lace to it, partly just to make it pretty, but also I'm hoping that this will provide a bit of light support, similar to doing the cording. I don't know if it will, but if nothing else, it'll make it a little bit prettier as well. So I will keep on with this lace, then I'll do those last few eyelets, and then hopefully we're done. So last thing is the lacing, and what better to use than shoelaces? Well, you know, that's what I had. So I used one of the white shoelaces to lace it in the middle. The other one I cut in half and used to connect the straps to the main body there. Because apparently adjustable straps were a thing even back then. Yay. And so with one final bow, I think my stays are done. And so there we go. That is what they look like. Carefully hand sewn, beautiful cotton lace put on to make it look pretty. Hopefully they might even be comfortable. You can't really judge how these stays are going to look on based by how it sits on the dummy. The dummy is not squishy like I am, but it gives you an idea of the shape and the lift that it will give. So hopefully that will be an authentic look for my Elliot costume. So anyway, thank you for watching Yesterday Today yet again. as I work on my book week costume. Come back for more exciting sewing, and next week I will be working on my petticoat. So why not like and subscribe, and I'll see you soon. Bye for now.